Good morning, everybody. My name is Trevor Boucher. I'm a member of the NWA webinar team, and we're really excited to have another webinar for you. This one's actually going to be featuring one of our member groups, which we'll be hearing a little bit more about. But I wanted to introduce our host for today, the leader of the Aviation Weather Group. This is David Dillahunt. He's a meteorologist at Southwest Airlines. But as I mentioned, he's also the lead of the Aviation member group. So before we get into our topic and jump right in, I do want to get to it because I know that we're going to have a couple different presenters talking. But David, first, thank you for being here. But second, thank you for being the guinea pig for our idea of member groups and what those really are. So since we have so many people here, I wanted to first ask a little bit about what is a member group from your perspective, and what is the aviation member group trying to accomplish?
Sure. Yeah. So before the member group idea kind of came about, the NWA had committees, and there was more of an application process and a little more of a formal way of getting into the committee. And the member groups have kind of taken down some of those walls and some of those obstacles, so it's a little easier to get in and be a part of a member group, which allows for a lot more diversity and more growth within these groups. And for us, and we've been kind of guinea pigging this for a year or two now, and we've been able to add quite a few to our group. And while NWA is kind of a meteorological and climate-based group, we also have a lot of non-meteorologists in our group, which really helps, I think, to bring outside perspectives into the group and kind of focus on some of our mission and goals that we have.
Yeah, so thanks, David. That's really exciting to hear that you got that much turnout and how much participation with that member group. But yeah, generally the idea with member groups is that before members could become a member, and they weren't really sure how to get involved. And so really with a member group, what's your interest? What would you like to be part of the discussion? And then kind of the eventuality is that you can have meetings with those groups, you can bounce ideas off of them, or do webinars like this. So I'm really excited to be able to do the first member group led webinar to see that come to fruition and us to be able to do that. So thank you again for being here, and thank you to Scott Minnick and Josh Malloy, who are here as your presenters. But I'm going to jump off the camera and let you take it from here. And so go ahead and good luck with your webinar. Take it away, David.
All right. Thank you, Trevor. So again, thank you all for joining. We have quite a few participants on today, which is very encouraging. So just real quick, again, going over our member group, the goal and purpose of our group is to expand on some of the education of aviation meteorology and do a lot of outreach within the industry and parts of the community. So, and that's kind of what this webinar is aimed for today. We're going to talk about some of the operations in remote area of the country where aviation is very important in Alaska. And then we're going to talk about the new website or the redesign that the Aviation Weather Center is working on. So first, we'll go ahead and get started with the presentations. We're going to have Josh Malloy, who's at the Alaska Aviation Weather Center, which is also the Anchorage Volcanic Ash Advisory Center as well. So Josh, I'll let you add in a little bit more to your introduction if you'd like, but I'll let you go ahead and get started.
Thank you, David. And I will just say, thank you to all of you out there for taking a little bit of time to listen in on today's presentation. As mentioned, my name is Josh Malloy. I'm the Warning Coordination Meteorologist of the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit, also known as the AAWU, and the Anchorage Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, also known as the BAC. One of the things I hope you take away from today, we are two offices in one. Doesn't necessarily mean we get double the staffing, but it does mean we have two distinct, very important missions that are going on concurrently. Just also as a note, we are co-located with a number of other Weather Service entities. They're listed below there, the Anchorage Forecast Office, the River Forecast Center, the Regional Operations Center. We're all housed in the same complex in the southwest side of Anchorage, Alaska. This is what our facility looks like from the outside, kind of looking off to the west. We're adjacent to the Ted Stevens International Airport. So depending on runway orientation, those aircraft are just, skimming those trees there in the distance there. So two offices in one. The Meteorological Watch Office portion, or the AAWU portion, on that map there, the area that's bounded by the yellow lines, that constitutes the Anchorage Flight Information Regions, or FIRS. It's about 2.5 million square miles of airspace that runs from the Arctic Ocean in the north down through, mainland Alaska, Bering Sea, and then a portion of the North Pacific Ocean as well. So our staff are engaged in the provision of SIGMETs and AirMETs for that area of responsibility, producing an array of graphics, the traditional hazards, turbulence and icing, thunderstorms, flight category, a host of outlook charts, etc. They're also engaging with the general aviation community and the local CWSU, which is ZAN up here. With regards to the general aviation community, pre-pandemic, it was not unusual for some of them to actually come into our shop and engage with us, ask their questions, directly face to face, ask about where they're going to be flying to over the coming days. So, obviously the pandemic has kind of put, a hold on some of those face to face interactions, but we're still talking to them on the phone on a regular basis. We know a number of them on a first name basis, actually. Alaska and the Arctic in general, is getting higher and higher visibility, or, more visibility geopolitically. And as such, we're being asked to provide, more and more aviation type support for various missions and exercises. A lot of them have to do with sampling and assessing the ice pack off the Arctic coast, wildlife surveys, things of that nature. So there's increasing demand for that type of service. So that's the Meteorological Watch Office side, the MWO side. Now we also have the VAC side, Volcanic Ash Advisory Center side. So the map on the bottom, that actually constitutes, or I should say, it actually shows the area of responsibility for the 9 internationally sanctioned VACs across the world. 2 of them fall under the auspices of the United States. There's one down in the Washington, D.C. area, and then there's the one up here in Anchorage. Our area of responsibility on that bottom map is highlighted by the extra bold shading, if you will. The map on the top actually shows a subset of the North Pacific routes. And as you can appreciate, I mean, it's ground zero for the Northern Ring of Fire. Those little orange triangles you see, I mean, those are the volcanoes. They're spotted across the AOR. And so there's more than 50 of them just in the state of Alaska alone that are considered active. So that we have to monitor those, obviously in conjunction with the USGS, the Alaska Volcano Observatory. But we're also watching what's going on upstream. There's a subset of volcanoes over the Kamchatka Peninsula and the Kuril Islands. Provided there's enough volcanic ash and strong enough winds, it's going to move downstream into our area of responsibility. And so we have to be mindful of that as well. So there's going to be both domestic and international coordination. We share a border to the south, as mentioned, with Washington, D.C. VAC. We share a border to the west with Tokyo VAC, and we share a border to the east with Montreal VAC. And then collectively, the advisories, the graphics that are produced by all of the VACs, they help to kind of fulfill the International Airways Volcano Watch Program. As far as our actual workstation setup, I mean, depending on the forecaster, there may be some different flavors of it, but essentially we have 3 main features. The 3 monitors in the center there, that is AWIPS, and that's pretty ubiquitous across the National Weather Service. That's how we get to ingest different model data, satellite imagery, radar imagery, pilot reports, all that stuff is kind of getting integrated into AWIPS. Something that's unique to the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit and the VAC is the 2 monitors on the far right there, IC4D. Probably the best way to describe that, it's kind of a very, very bare-boned graphical forecast editor, GFE, if you will. We can ingest a couple of different parameters for turbulence, some icing guidance is retrievable in there. IC4D is also how we disseminate our SIGMETs, generate our graphics, and edit grids. That's all done in IC4D. All the way on the far left, we also have we have an admin PC that we can also leverage. Obviously, there's web-based tools that we all are accustomed to: web cameras, Mesonet data, NWS chat, for those of you who are familiar with that. So we have that capability as well. So that's our general workstation setup here in our office. As far as our staffing profile, you see the picture there. That's actually what our operations floor looks like, pre-pandemic. I mean, the operations floor is still there, but most of us are social distancing to some degree. But we have an administrative staff, and then we have an operations staff. I happen to be part of the administrative staff as the warning coordination meteorologist, just a fancy title for liaison between my office and interested parties of aviation meteorology, particularly up here in Alaska, engaging with customers and seeing how are they using our products, what kinds of things would they like to see, and then bringing that feedback back into our office and seeing if we can actually bring some of those things to fruition. We also have a science operations officer. I like to think of that person as our top weather geek, facilitating that research to operations pipeline, and working on professional development with staff, senior science advisor, if you will, for the unit. And then we have a meteorologist in charge, supervisory function over the entire VAC and NWA portion, also serves as the VAC manager, hiring official, rating official, things of that nature. But where the rubber meets the road, that's the operations staff. That's our lead aviation meteorologist and our journey aviation meteorologist, or forecasters. They work with a fair amount of autonomy. The leads additionally serve as the shift supervisors, and in cases where we have junior staff, they're mentors to those junior staff. They have shift supervision responsibility in terms of invoking overtime if need be, surging baseline staffing for more significant events. I put a little blurb there at the bottom that when we're fully staffed, there's only 14 of us to fulfill both the MWO and the VAC responsibility, and we're 24/7, 365 days a year. And I will say there's always 2 people on shift. Right now we actually have vacancies in the unit, so we're not fully staffed. We are actually down a lead forecaster, we're down a journey forecaster, and we're down the meteorologist in charge. We do have somebody in the acting capacity in that meteorologist in charge position, but we are aggressively trying to get us back to fully staffed, especially in light of the fact we're expecting more retirements later this year. So we're quite challenged here on the staffing front. In terms of the transactional work that's going on, we still produce what's called area forecasts. They're legacy rip and read forecasts. Basically, it just kind of gives Alaska is a large state, so we break it down into different zones, and then we try to characterize what we expect, the cloud condition, the visibility to be across those particular zones. So this one here is actually for the Kodiak Island zone. If we're expecting any advisories to airmen or airmets, those would be characterized in here in alphanumeric form. I will say that these are actually issued 3 times a day. There's an early morning package, there's a midday package, and then there's one in the evening. These area forecasts are valid for 12 hours from the issuance time. So something that's issued at 4 in the morning will be valid until 4 in the afternoon. This particular example is valid through the 12th at 0900 Zulus, that's basically midnight. So this area forecast was issued at noon for the Kodiak Island area. And again, if there were any airmets, in this case, there was an airmet for IFR for ceilings, and there was an airmet for mountain obscuration. No airmets for turbulence or for icing, but if we did, they would also be depicted in red in this particular product. In terms of the graphics that are produced for low-level turbulence, basically 18,000 feet and below, if you wanted to graphically get a feel for where there's going to be advisories to airmets on that particular day, you're looking for areas that are orange or red on this map. And so basically we try to assess where we think the base of that turbulence will be, where the top will be. And then these graphics are generally issued around the same time as the area forecasts. Typically they go out slightly afterward, but there's 3 packages per day. They are also valid for 12 hours from the issuance time. The graphics are 3 hours long, so there's 4 3-hour graphics to constitute that 12-hour forecast. If we're expecting any low-level wind shear, we'll also kind of append that on the low-level turbulence graphic. High-level turbulence, that's basically everything above 18,000 feet. The legend is a little different. It kind of harkens back to legacy times when these graphics were first developed. So you'll see that there's only occasional moderate and continuous moderate turbulence that's forecasted. We've been giving some thought to try and maybe add a moderate, isolated, severe. That way, interested parties might get a feel for where there might be a sigma at that particular day, for example. But it's basically the same setup. There's 4 3-hour graphics. They are valid from 12 hours from the issuance time, and they're issued 3 times a day. Similar thing for icing. Anything that's air-metted would be in orange or red. Same valid times, 12 hours from the issuance time, issued 3 times a day. It should be mentioned that, these are prescribed times where you get a fresh package, but the forecast can be amended as needed, especially as PIREPs come in or as the conditions are going to be trending into a different direction. We do take the liberty of amending these graphics as need be. Convection, traditionally this has been a seasonal product. Most of our convection is generally from May to September, and then outside of that, not as much, at least over the mainland. Certainly, you can still get convection out over the waters, particularly over the North Pacific year-round. But a base of the cumulonimbus cloud, the top of those thunderstorms, that's what's depicted on here. In a general sense, if you kind of want to get a feel for whether or not the AAWU will be issuing any SIGMETs on this particular day for thunderstorms. Basically, you're looking at scattered or widespread thunderstorm coverage. You'd be looking for red and maroon, and that kind of gives you a feel. The convective graphics, unlike the other graphics, the turbulence and the icing, they're only issued once a day. There's an early morning package that goes out around 4 in the morning, but it's valid for 24 hours. So be valid from 4 a.m. in the morning today to 4 a.m. in the morning tomorrow. And basically 3-hour timestamps through that. It's valid for 24 hours. Flight category charts. A lot of the general aviation community up here is VFR. So obviously where it's sub VFR is very crucial to know. So marginal VFR is depicted in blue, IFR is depicted in red, and it is valid for 12 hours from the issuance time. Unlike the turbulence and the icing and the convection, which the graphics are 3-hour charts, these flight category charts are more of a time smooth. They're actually 2 6-hour charts. Additionally, there is no stipulation for whether or not the IFR or the MVFR is due to ceilings, due to visibility, or due to both. It just, hey, it's going to be IFR out here. It's going to be marginal VFR out here. There's no distinguishing from the IFR with regards to whether or not the low IFR or very low IFR. We also try to append sustained winds of 30 knots or greater on this particular map. That is also an air-met criteria. And so that will show up, for example, in this particular chart, you see all that hatched area in black over the Bering Sea. There's a couple of areas up over the northwestern half of the state near the Bering Strait. That would also be depicted on our flight category chart. If there's any active volcanoes in the Alaska domain, whether it be new volcanic ash emissions or resuspended volcanic ash, we will have a symbol for that volcano. Geographically, it will kind of be stamped on this particular map as well. In this particular example, there was no active volcanic activity, but that would be something that you would also see on this particular chart. 24 to 60 hour significant weather charts or outlook charts. Basically, we're looking at where there's going to be, the prevailing surface features, if you will, the high pressures, the low pressures, the fronts, the troughs. And then overlaying on that, where we believe there may be marginal VFR or IFR. If we expect it to be VFR, it'll just be the background color, it'll just be white. MVFR will be hatched blue and IFR hatched red. If we anticipate that there may be some low-level turbulence, below 18,000 feet, rising to the criteria of an air met, we will depict that with a black hatched area of black dots. So that area across the central half of the state. Believe that area has the potential 60 hours from that issuance time, maybe some occasional moderate or greater turbulence. If we expected any thunderstorm activity, regardless if there's going to be just a few or if it's going to be widespread, that also would be depicted on these 24 to 60 hour charts in hatched red area. In a general sense, we issue these twice a day. The morning package typically goes out at 6 a.m., maybe a little before that. The evening one, it can range from 6 to 9 p.m. We're trying to set it up so that, again, update every 12 hours. So there'll be an issuance at 6 a.m., there'll be an issuance at 6 p.m. And we know that these charts are heavily used particularly by the general aviation community up here. Something that we've been experimenting with and we're trying to start issuing as needed, trying to raise awareness of where some significant aviation hazard may occur, and generally try to push it out in that 36 to 60 hour time frame. And we've identified just a handful of criteria, listed some of them here: severe turbulence, severe icing potential, altimeter settings 31 inches of mercury or greater, or a 1050 millibar high or stronger. The general aviation community is curious about that, and if we can provide a little bit of heads up, we'll try to graphically depict that. We'll put a little blurb in there about the timing of it, and push that onto the website, and hopefully that will aid in mitigating some potential risk. And again, we'll try to issue these, don't want to issue these all the time, but just for some very select criteria, and hopefully folks will heed the potential of these potential significant events. Volcanic ash graphics, similar to the volcanic ash advisories that we're issuing, are just alphanumeric products. It's really the volcanic ash graphic that everybody wants to see, because you get better context as far as where is volcanic ash currently and where is it going to be moving up to 18 hours into the future. So this particular graphic is for residual ash from an eruption that originated at Sheveluch volcano, which is actually on the Kamchatka Peninsula and in Tokyovac's area of responsibility. So an example for Sheveluch, the ash goes into the atmosphere. The initial volcanic ash graphics are going to be issued by Tokyovac, but at some key point, once it pushes far enough to the north and or to the east or southeast, there's going to be a discussion between our office and Tokyo, and a determination of when we're going to hand this thing over. And basically it was handed off, and then the graphics will then become produced by the Anchorage area. And then in this particular case, the ash is moving off to the south and east. It was up to 36,000 feet, moving southeast at 70 knots. At some key point, if there's enough concentrations, it's going to push south and east of our AOR and start straddling or pushing into Washington, D.C.'s back area of responsibility, and the Aviation Weather Center's area of responsibility. So an example here of, where there'll be possible multiple offices coordinated with by the Anchorage VAC and the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit. These particular graphics are such high demand that we actually have a constituency that we simply just email. That we generate the graphics and we send out the email on demand, so that those core partners can get a feel for, hey, this is going to be impacting the North Pacific routes, or it's going to be impacting Alaska. And so there's a very select group that we have in there, and they're very appreciative of that graphic that we produce. If you were curious of how we actually divvy up the workload, as mentioned, there's 2 people on shift at any given time. I'm not necessarily going to speak to all this here, but that kind of gives you a feel for how we divvy up the area of responsibility between the North Desk and the South Desk. Generally, mainland Alaska is considered the North Desk, and then the southern portion and the Aleutian Islands, Bering Sea, is the South Desk. The South Desk, additionally, is the focal point for any volcanic activity that's occurring in the AOR. And that's mainly because that forecaster is already looking at aviation hazards where the volcanoes happen to be. Cook Inlet, down through the Aleutian chain, and then out towards the Kamchatka Peninsula. So this is how we kind of divvy up the workload. And as you can imagine, trying to split that up amongst 2 people is quite challenging. Other challenges that we have, IC4D, as mentioned, our dissemination system, it's not really nationally supported. It's not a nationally recognized system, at least in terms of the National Weather Service. And so my Weather Service brethren, say if something stops ingesting in AWIPS, all of a sudden the 6Z GFS didn't ingest, or we're not getting the satellite imagery stops updating. Well, you can pick up the phone and get a national level hotline 24 hours a day. But that's for things that are in AWIPS. Things that are in IC4D, we have no such support. Other things, don't really have any local IT staff that's dedicated specifically to troubleshooting problems and developing new content on the website. This is a good example of our website, the VAC page. If you were to go onto our page right now, it would have a listing of all the advisories that our office has issued over the last, so many months or years. But currently it shows that the most recent advisory that was issued, but recent graphic that was issued, was in December of 2018, and clearly that is not the case. And so there's some challenges and there's some cautions when using our website information. And in some cases, push comes to shove, if you're in doubt, just give us a call and we can confirm one way or the other whether or not there's something that's actively occurring. Other challenges, also in IC4D, where we're actually drawing the SIGMET. Here's a map of the central Aleutians on the Pacific side between Atka and Dutch Harbor. So here was a case where the AWU meteorologist believed there was a SIGMET, potential for severe turbulence in this particular case, on the Pacific side of the Aleutian chain. And so you can, we go into our GUI, we create the polygon where we believe it is. In this particular case, we believe that the SIGMET would be adjacent to the Oakland Oceanic FIR, so straddling the Anchorage the Anchorage FIR and the Oakland Oceanic FIR. You look at this particular chart, it looks like, okay, yeah, it's right up along the border. In fact, it might even push slightly south of the border. That's how it appeared to the AWU meteorologist, but how does it look to the outside world? Another challenge, we don't have the capability to overlay SIGMETs that are issued by our international brethren and our domestic brethren. So if Aviation Weather Center has a SIGMET out near the border, we can't see it in IC4D. If the Japanese Meteorological Agency to our west has a SIGMET, we can't see it in IC4D. So oftentimes we're kind of guesstimating where their SIGMET may be and trying to coordinate best we can. So this is how it looked to the AWU meteorologists. On the Aviation Weather Center site, this is actually how the SIGMET appeared. And you can see that the SIGMET actually did not get down to the border. There was actually a substantial gap in there. That's how it appeared to the outside world, to interested parties. And what we're finding is that the shape files that we have in our office are not aligned with our brethren to the south, to the west, and to the east. And so that makes for coordination can get a little tricky. In this particular case, obviously we had a gap along the FIR border that was unintended. And so the Aviation Weather Center, rightfully so, drew a SIGMET up to match us, and then there was a little bit of overlap there. But again, the challenge is shape files are different. So we need some work on that end. Same view of the same SIGMET, but on SkyVector, which we also know is another heavily used platform. Again, we thought the SIGMET was up along the border, but it really wasn't. So we're trying to do the best we can, but you may see these types of outcomes when it comes to hazards, at least as it pertains to challenges along the border. Would be remiss if I did not mention we're trying to be a little bit more conspicuous in NWS chat. And for those of you who are familiar with it, it is a platform where you can engage with fellow meteorologists. You can engage with core partners. I have seen I've seen airline meteorologists on here. I've seen cargo meteorologists on here. Every now and then I've seen some DoD personnel. Basically, from our perspective, the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit and the Anchorage VAC, we're trying to get in there and actually put some information in there when, say, for example, we're posting our new set of graphics, when we're amending graphics, when we're amending area forecasts, new airmets are going to be issued, new SIGMETs are going to be issued, maybe they're going to be canceled, trying to add additional information with regards to volcanic activity. There's only so much or so many characters that you can put in a remark in a SIGMET or in a volcanic ash advisory. And so maybe expanding a little bit on that particular remark in NWS chat. Those are some of the things that we're trying to incorporate routinely as we go from shift to shift. You can find us particularly in the AWU chat room, and you can find us in the volcano chat room. Those are the ones where we're most prevalent in. Also would be remiss if I didn't say that we're actually trying to improve collaboration with international brethren. The Japanese Meteorological Agency, which we share a border to the west, they've developed a tool which is similar to NWS chat, but basically it's a room where we can actually overlay proposed areas of SIGMETs, where SIGMETs actually currently are, and then, speak to, the levels that maybe we want to, actually include. We can share PIREP information. I can tell you that we don't always get the PIREPs, the pilot reports, and the air reps that are coming across the North Pacific in the Fukuoka FIR. We don't always get them, and so we can actually engage with our brethren upstream and ask them, hey, we see you have a SIGMET out there. Are you getting any corroborating PIREPs? And then that can help aid us in our decision making. So this was a good example. And then, it doesn't always work out this way, but this is what we strive to have: harmonization of SIGMETs along the border. Geographically, in terms of levels, movement, this is what we're trying to improve as we, expand our services into the future. So in terms of the summary, I know I threw a lot at you here, but if there's some takeaways here, I want you to remember that we're two offices in one. We're issuing the SIGMET, and we're also issuing the volcanic ash guidance. Those are being done simultaneously. I want you to understand that we have challenges. There's only 14 of us when we're fully staffed, and we have a very large AOR. We do the best we can. We certainly need to work on IT support. We need to work on getting shape files that are, better aligned with our neighbors to the southeast and to the west. I also want you to know that we're readily accessible. We have 2 people on shift, 24 hours a day. Again, if there's content on our website that looks a little odd, please give us a call. We'll be happy to confirm things for you one way or the other. We have direct lines to our meteorologists 24/7, and we have presence in NWS chat. You may consider getting an account if it's appropriate or if it's available to you. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. I did leave some of the websites, our AWU website and our VAC website. That information is there. Our operations numbers are up there again, the operations 24/7. Currently, my posture is that of a telework because of the pandemic. My contact information is on there. The office email is there as well. So thank you for your time. Standing by for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Josh. That's all very fascinating stuff. I know I've been up to Alaska a couple of times, and I can imagine how important the weather support is, just considering the remoteness up there. So I don't see any questions in our chat yet, but I do have a question myself. And so over the past couple of years, I've heard a lot about the observation camera program that has been going on all over the state up there. And I'm just curious how much your offices and the forecasters use that for maybe amendments or just kind of some trend monitoring, or any challenges they have with the cameras that are used for observation sites in parts of the most remote part of the state.
Yes, we too have been watching with great interest. We've been watching with great interest the deployment and the expansion of those webcams across the state. Yes, they are used by our aviation meteorologists. They fill in the gaps. There's a lot of the state that is unsampled by METARs. It's unsampled by RAYODs. It's unsampled by radar. And so those webcams are huge, huge resources in being able to identify trends. We have our conceptual models of where we might think there could be some fog and stratus. We may think it's precipitating out there. Those webcams give us some eyes on the ground. So yes, we're using them. We know absolutely the general aviation community is using those for decision making as well. And we encourage our FAA brethren to keep it coming. There's still, it's gotten a lot better in the last several years, as you mentioned. But certainly there's more places where we could use them. And we're absolutely using them every day.
Great. I think there may be a few people on the call that would be glad to hear that, because I know there's quite a few that have been working on that project with the FAA, or something related to that. So I don't see any questions now. We'll definitely come back when we're all wrapped up to see if there's questions that go in there.
David, if I can interrupt.
Sure, yeah.
There's actually 2 questions that I see in the chat here. So
okay, I don't have visibility to them, so I haven't seen them. Sorry.
Well, then let me ask them for you, since I can see them. The first one actually comes from Michael Split. He's asking, are you involved with the issuance of airport weather warnings for any of the Alaska airports?
We are not. Our brethren at the Anchorage Weather Forecast Office, I believe, has been a little bit more involved in that. There may be some opportunities for us to kind of step in Right now, we've kind of left our involvement to traditional significant meteorological statements, SIGMETs and AirMets. That's kind of where our bread and butter is. There may be some opportunities to maybe modify or tailor some of that SIGMET information for a more localized area. Obviously, the Anchorage Ted Stevens Airport is a high visibility, high transit airport. And so there may be some opportunities to kind of collaborate with the WFO and see if there's anything additional that we have that can add some value to what we're already providing in terms of warnings and AirMets. But directly, no, at this time we are not. A lot of that falls more in the auspices of the WFOs.
Okay, thank you for your answer there. We actually have 4 more. So David, do you want to do all 4, or do you want to hold some to the end? You're muted, David, sorry.
Sorry. We'll do the 4 now, and if there's more after that, we'll put those at the end.
Sounds good. I'll move right along. So the next one comes from Walter Rogers. He's saying, having a local IT support development person on staff seems like the most critical shortfall. When I worked in the Weather Service 12 years ago, now retired, all had on-staff IT. Has this been dropped, or is this a budgeting support staff issue?
Well, let me clarify something. When I say there's no IT support, what I mean is, when in the context of a National Weather Service modernized office from circa 1990s and to present day, baseline staffing for a WFO and for an NCEP center traditionally has an ITO, Information Technology Officer, or an Information Technology Specialist. So in terms of that context and that paradigm, the AWU and the VAC does not have somebody who is formally accountable just to our unit. Now, there are some ITO and ITS resources in the region, and certainly when things come up and we need some assistance with something, we can at least raise our hand and ask for some support. But the challenges of IT problems, particularly in the Alaska region, pretty immense. And so I think the question was asking, is it a resource thing? I suspect that might be part of it. I mean, that kind of moves a little bit outside of my purview in terms of policy making and whatnot. But certainly it's an area that, as we evolve our services, we want to improve our services. We need to make sure that our interface with our customer is representative. I mean, certainly our bread and butter is the SIGMET. And so if the SIGMET information is not updating on our website, that's a pretty big deal.
Thanks, Josh. I'll follow up. This isn't a question, but another comment from Walter, just saying that the 24 and 60-hour SIG weather graphics are a great idea, worthy of further development, especially for the general aviation. Outlooks from 3 to 5 days are important for mission planning. So just a compliment. So I move to the next question from Josh Wofford. He says, good afternoon. A lot of our Coast Guard crews operate in the Bering Sea, and sometimes the fog forecast can be a little off sometimes, especially in the summer. What factors go into those predictions? Can we use chat to get a better understanding of the fog trends from you all if we are trying to work a search and rescue case?
Sure, yeah. The Bering Sea, I mean, obviously the state of Alaska itself, just the mainland, is data sparse. So you can imagine the Bering Sea is even that much more so. In a general sense, when, what is going into that fog forecast, seasonally speaking, climatologically speaking, we can almost always anticipate some degree of fog and stratus over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians during the summertime pattern. Things that would maybe drive us in one direction or another in terms of trends. Do we have a new frontal system that's coming up from the south or from the west? Do we have a change in the air mass that maybe instead of having low IFR for day after day after day, maybe there could be some windows of where maybe it lifts up to maybe some low marginal VFR. Maybe the visibility comes up from a half mile, a quarter mile, up to 2-3 miles. Perhaps it kind of scatters out. We're looking for changes in air mass. Those are really the key things that we're looking for in terms of trying to determine, how bad it's going to be, and the trends or the direction that we want to move the trend. As far as asking specific questions, we welcome those. NWS chat, or you can pick up the phone. You can give us a call. We would be happy to give you our latest and greatest thinking. we do have some high resolution models out there. I mean, we have the HER, we have some SHREF data. Obviously, satellites have really become a better resource, especially with the rollout of GO-17, where we actually have some better capability to determine fog and stratus during the overnight hours. But yeah, I mean, there's very few webcams out there, and the observation sites that we have are very few and far between. So it's very challenging. But yeah, I would say the changes in air mass is really what we're looking for out there. And certainly, if there are specific questions about a particular area out there, we would be happy to give you our thoughts, relay our latest and greatest thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Josh. I got two more to throw at you. So next one is, can you talk a bit about NWS chat? Who is an appropriate viewer, and how would one go about accessing the chat?
Yeah, so NWS chat is not open to everybody. I guess maybe I should have clarified that. It's generally reserved for people who are actively engaged in, say, emergency management, meteorologists, members of the media, members of the Department of Defense who have interest in safeguarding assets. So it's not like any person on the street, any citizen can just sign up for it. But if you have work and business that's engaged in, safeguarding resources, if you will, you can actually get onto the NWA. And I guess I didn't list it there, but I could speak to you offline. There's a website you go to, and then you put in your credentials, and then it goes through a vetting process, and then you can be added to that particular repository. And then once you're in the repository, you will have access to certain chat rooms where the AAWU, and not just the AAWU, all across the National Weather Service, there's offices and representatives that have rooms that are tailored just for their particular area of responsibility. So that would be the steps. Assess what your actual position is. Do you have any official duties with regards to safeguarding property, things of that nature? And then it goes through a vetting process, and then you would be added to the repository, and then we can include you in our rooms. And I could certainly talk to folks offline if they need some assistance with that.
Thanks, and I forgot to mention that question came from Mary O'Connor, so if you wanted to follow up with her afterwards, that's the name. And then we have one last question here. Actually, one more just came in, so two questions. One more from Walter Rogers. Do you have plans for a mountain wave hazard product? There have been aircraft damage in the past in Alaska from these strong breaking propagating mountain waves.
I guess the short answer is no. We do recognize that mountain wave, particularly when there's strong turbulence in those mountain wave events, those are a big deal. Again, North Pacific routes, Anchorage is a high transit hub. So we know that there's a lot of traffic going past the Alaska range or lee of the Chugach Mountains, the St. Elias range, along the Alcan border. So the short answer is no. Our SUE has worked with some of the forecasters to develop some case studies. I know that a couple of forecasters, or at least one forecaster who was previously actually here in the AAWU, is actually now down at Aviation Weather Center, continues to add to a repository of case studies of mountain wave events and shares that information with us. And we look to see if there's any lessons learned or anything that can be gleaned on that. But in terms of formal programs, projects, no, not at this time.
Okay, and last but not least from Lawrence Trattini, when is Alaska slated to go to the graphical forecast in adverse conditions like the CONUS?
That's a good question. So if you go to our website, it's actually on our website right now. In terms of when the GFA, or even if the GFA will upgrade and or replace the area forecast, that decision has not been made at this time. Certainly there's a constituency out there, flight service stations, and still a constituency of general aviation or general aviation community in low bandwidth areas that still need a rip and read. Whether or not the area forecast as it currently exists will continue, say, in 2030, I think it's probably unlikely. But whether or not GFA is the one-to-one replacement like it is in the lower 48, up here in Alaska, we have very unique needs. And so I can't say for certain that that will be the eventual outcome. I do think that the legacy area forecast as it is will likely modify to some extent. I will say that I think it was about 8 years ago, the area forecast preparation time, there were actually 4 issuance per day, similar to TAFs on the synoptic hours. So they went from 4 issuance a day for many years, and now it's 3 issuances a day. So I could see maybe some evolving from that 3 issuances a day, perhaps to 2 issuances, or maybe making the area forecast maybe a little bit longer duration. But right now, the GFA is available on the AWU website, but we're still cranking out those FAs and plan to do so until further notice, quite frankly.
Okay, Josh, that's the end of the questions for me. So take it away, David.
All right, thank you, Trevor, for doing that. Thank you again, Josh. I failed to mention that Josh is one of our members within the aviation member group, so very appreciative of him taking the time to present to everybody today. I think we're going to move along to Scott Minnick, who's at the AWC. He is also a member in our aviation member group within NWA. As I mentioned before, he's going to be talking about the aviationweather.gov beta website. So with that, Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone, or I guess good afternoon, early afternoon on the East Coast. As David mentioned, my name is Scott Minnick. I'm a lead forecaster here at the Aviation Weather Center in Kansas City. I've been with AWC for almost 5 years now. Been in the National Weather Service for about 13 years. So getting some good experience aviation-wise through my whole career. And I guess this presentation is mostly going to be about our beta website. But at the end, of course, if you have any general Aviation Weather Center questions, I'll be happy to answer those, or just shoot me an email on the email link listed below. Kind of to get started here, as I always like to say, you know, I'm a big user of obviously National Weather Service websites. Everyone is. Millions of people visit our websites every day, multiple times, especially if you've got weather impacts or outdoor plans or something like that. General aviation pilots on our website all the time. So I personally understand, you know, how important NWS websites are. And with that said, an upgrade or a change to a website that is becoming ingrained in an industry and even an aviation culture can be quite worrisome, or actually quite scary. So basically, the proposed aviationweather.gov is a significant upgrade, especially behind the scenes. So I hope maybe walking you through the website today will maybe ease some of your worries, some of your fears of transitioning to a new website. There will be some URL changes. I'll be sure to share those with you throughout this presentation. So hopefully some of those worries can be subsided. But again, thank you, David. Thank you, Josh. I'm going to go ahead and cut my camera off since this is going to be fairly graphic intensive presentation. While we go through this. Oops, and I lost my GoToWebinar GUI. All right, here I'm back. It says, okay, am I still sharing, David? It says that no one can see my screen.
So we have your webcam. We don't see your, there, now we've got your screen.
Okay, I clicked the wrong button.
There we go, we got it now.
All right, perfect. So we'll get started and get through this. Basically, a look at today's aviationweather.gov. You're all probably very familiar with this website. It's been around for quite a while, even predating cell phones. So this is definitely the National Weather Service's flagship aviation website. So very important website, critical to infrastructure, to the national economy. We get over 100 million hits a day. About half of those hits come from data scrappers. The data goes into apps, it goes into briefings, it gets submitted to ADS-B displays, whether that be in the cockpit of a Piper or the cockpit of an A380. So a lot of this data, you know, it's been around for a very long time, and obviously this is a very important website. So the upgrade is being taken very serious, and feedback is appreciated. And I'll share some of those survey links here shortly. But basically, here's an overview of what, just kind of a broad view of what tomorrow's aviationweather.gov will look like. On the left is what it would look like on a desktop or a large screen, and then on the right is what it would look like on a cell phone or even a mobile device. So kind of before we get into the gist of the web page, how about just a look at why we need to upgrade? Why are we going for an upgrade? So, oh, sorry, I just had a message pop up. All right, I'm back. So why the upgrade? Well, several reasons. Basically, we needed to adapt to an evolving internet usage pattern. The current website was constructed, as I mentioned before, cell phones, and now over half of all the internet traffic is on mobile devices, whether that be cell phones or tablets. The new website was designed from a mobile-first approach, and thankfully can gracefully accommodate varying screen sizes. So another reason to upgrade is a consolidation of menus and buttons. As many of you probably know, navigating our current website can be quite cumbersome at times. So this makes the website much easier to navigate. And you kind of get less sense of, you know, where the heck am I and how do I ever get back here to where I found it? And basically you can kind of grasp the simplification of the website from the old website menus and buttons on the left versus the new buttons, or I guess the new menus with no buttons on the right. And basically just a warning of that consolidation of menus, as I mentioned before, we'll change some of the URLs and we'll be sure to point those out here momentarily. So another reason, basically to consolidate some pages into one single common interface. That will make it easier to incorporate data sets from different domains, display them together. It'll also make it much easier to update and maintain one common interface. And an example of that common interface was a significant upgrade in the consolidation of the HIMSS and GFA tool into one single interface. And we'll talk about that a little more later as we walk through the GFA. So another significant upgrade is easier access to static imagery for CWSU graphics packages. These static graphics are also helpful for self-briefings as the page consolidates all the briefing graphics to one single site. Again, more on this a little later, but really an advantage here is there are no longer any hidden images. So if you've had experience with trying to find images on the Aviation Weather Center's website, you know that you've got to have some secret URLs to kind of find some of those images, but now everything's on one page, one decision support graphic page, easily accessible from the front page, and then easily change your graphic image right in the site itself. And then for you that are more tech savvy, basically, it's a switch to a modern technology stack. New website uses Bootstrap and Leaflet, and basically it's just a single code base. So that is a significant upgrade to the website, kind of behind the scenes. And then most importantly, how to provide feedback on the beta website. Basically, the current website is still operated 24/7 or supported 24/7. If you have any issues on the current site, aviationweather.gov, find that About button in the upper right, click on Contact Us, and then you can submit feedback or report any critical issues via that Contact Us button. Meanwhile, the beta website is not supported 24/7. It's only supported Monday through Friday during the week. So if there are any issues over the weekend, it might not be updated until Monday. But also, You can still report it via the same contact us. It's going to be the image of an envelope in the upper right-hand side. I'll go ahead and share that a little later, but also on here is a SurveyMonkey link. I've got that linked below as well. So please, this website's available until October 31st. We would appreciate any and all feedback possible because this is a significant change. You all are owners, you own this website as much as we do. So we want to be able to make sure that we're incorporating everybody's thoughts and concerns. And look for this website to go live sometime in the spring. And that's going to be, of course, depending on feedback and potential updates or bugs found. But definitely, hopefully, early next year, the beta website will become aviationweather.gov. So enough about that. How about we just take a look at the beta website? For simplicity, kind of what I've done is this is just going to be in briefing form, presentation form rather, instead of actually walking you through the website to where you might not remember where I clicked. So I thought this might be easier, and as well, there is a PDF saved as a handout in GoToWebinar, so you can download that. It's only going to include the slides that I actually have stepped through here now. To kind of show you around our website. So hopefully that will help. So here's the front page. For the sake of time, as I mentioned, we're just going to step through this. So I hope this is a benefit. As I mentioned, the PDF is there. So we'll just step through this. So kind of a new feature across the top of the page, you'll notice is our message news. This link actually scrolls, or I guess this message header actually scrolls with new and exciting things coming from AWC. We've got a quick overview of aviation weather conditions in our new graphic. All you have to do to get to the GFA now is just simply click anywhere on the map. We've also got front and center quick access to station data. Basically, you just type in the airport that you're interested in. You can select the most recent, or you can go back 48 hours, and it will display the OBS and even a TAF if that site has that. We've got a consolidated footer info. It's going to be the same from site to site within aviation weather. As you notice, the navigation bar is much improved and simplified. Link to the GFA again. And it's cut up to our web developers to kind of rotate through some of the GFA images based on the season. So those might be a little different from time to time once you click on those. We've got our link to dedicated DSS imagery. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then kind of a new emphasis on the website in general is our social media presence. Basically down here in the lower right, we're going to share any of our recent tweets. But as you notice on this example, as I wanted to share and show is that, it can be blocked by some browser extensions. So you might have to adjust some of those settings to be able to see those tweets. And then here's what the quick access to the station data would look like. As I mentioned, it's going to give you the METAR. And then if that site actually has a TAF, it's going to show you the TAF there as well. So we'll dig into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of the website and how to find the sites, basically starting in the upper part of the website. On the left, the desktop large screens, and on the right, the cell phones. So basically, this is what we call the navigation bar. It is going to be the same. The navigation bar is going to be the same on every single site within aviationweather.gov. So every single subdirectory is always going to have the same navigation bar on the top. So hopefully that makes that a little simpler, a little bit easier to read through. And then if you're on a cell phone, you've got to click the 3 horizontal bars, the menu option, to get those navigation highlights to appear. And if at any time you ever want to return to the front page, just simply click the logo or the Aviation Weather Center text, and you'll go right back to the home page. Same for the cell phones. So looking at the weather and product menus on the navigation bar, it kind of emphasizes again the consolidation of multiple menus and buttons from the current web page. All of those current buttons are on the home page, as well as the advisories, forecast, and observation menus. They've all been consolidated into just 2 menus on the beta site. So that is quite a difference, as you can tell on the left versus the right, just with navigation of the website. The tools menu is also slightly different. We'll kind of dig into this a little bit more later on. And then, of course, I want to highlight the Connect menu with links to Twitter, Facebook, and our YouTube site. The Aviation Weather Test Bed can also be found here as well. And a summary of AWC, including our mission and vision statements. Continuing along the navigation bar to the right-hand side is where you can find our Contact Us icon. Clicking on the envelope will open a Contact Us form. You can submit any feedback, any feedback on the website itself, whether that be, some preferences that you might not prefer or would prefer, or any critical issues that aren't working or updating. You can use that link. And then if you click on the little person icon in the upper right, that's kind of your account setting. You can sign in, mostly to submit PIREPs. A lot of the personalization of the current website has gone away with this new site. So basically that sign in is going to be how you submit PIREPs. And then a new feature as well to toggle between regular day mode and dark night mode. And that's perhaps one of my favorite features of the new website, especially as a shift worker that works at night. Being able to have that dark mode functionality can be quite handy. So basically, if you're a pilot too, flying at night, that's going to be very helpful as well. And emphasize here that dark mode is actually applied across the entire site. So you can see our homepage on the left, and then what the GFA would look like in dark mode on the right. Basically, some advantages of dark mode and why this was kind of emphasized on the site now is that it definitely enhances ergonomics by reducing eye strain. It facilitates screens and adjusts accordingly to current light conditions, and especially providing comfort of use at night or in dark environments. Not only in a dark basement when I'm working shifts, but also in a cockpit while flying at night. This is a very helpful feature. And then finally, on the far right, the question mark is our dedicated help page. We're going to have several of those help pages, and I'll kind of walk you through some of those here shortly. But they're not only help pages for the current website, they're also going to be help pages for some of our products and services as well. So while we're on it, we'll just go ahead and step through some of those help pages, because these are going to be very important obviously as we transition to a new website. To find that, obviously the question mark, as I just mentioned, on the far right of a desktop, but if you are on a cell phone, you'll have to click your menu button, those 3 horizontal bars, to be able to view that question mark, to be able to access the help pages. So once you click on the help or the question mark, or to get to the help pages, you'll be taken to that appropriate help page. There are several help pages within aviationweather.gov. So depending on where you are on the site will be depending on what help page actually appears. In this instance, you are in the GFA and you click the question mark. So what you're going to see is the graphical forecast for aviation help page. And just kind of walk you through some of that, your overview, your main help page, basically some detailed help for forecasts and observations within the GFA, a tutorial basically for every part of the GFA, and that even includes a link to a guided tour and videos. And then symbols, there's a lot of symbols, as you well know, on any weather chart. So we've got a legend of those symbols that are going to appear on the GFA. And then finally, an FAQ page with links to additional help resources. And those additional help resources are listed here. Basically, as I mentioned, anywhere you are on the site, once you click the question mark, will be dependent on what help page you get. But right off the bat, if you ever get confused on where you are, just simply click the FAQ, scroll down, and you'll have access to the entire menu that's on the left side of the screen here. I also want to point out on the main help page, if you're on our front page and you click the question mark, this is where you're going to find that extensive list of URL changes. So basically, every page is listed on the left of this URL page, the old link, and then on the far right, the new location of those products. So this is going to be a pretty important page as we transition to the new web page, because this is definitely going to highlight some of the most significant changes to that site. Also like to point out that some products, like the meteorological impact statement display, the area forecast data page, have been discontinued. Some other pages like the radar and satellite page have been changed to the national NWS radar and satellite page. And again, all that information can be found here on the list. So let's dig into basically our flagship product, the graphical forecast for aviation, and some of the changes that we're going to see with that display once we transition to this new beta website. Basically, right off the bat, you'll notice some impressive visual updates to the page. The biggest change is that observations and forecast now share a common interface within the GFA. So there's no going back and forth between your OBS tab and your forecast tab. Both the OBS and forecast are going to be found under the weather menu on the navigation bar. The time slider will behave differently depending on whether you're in observation or forecast mode, and that's highlighted across the bottom of these images. And basically, map options will also vary compared to the new web page. They're going to be found on the right side of the screen. I'll kind of highlight that here momentarily. But I guess to point out, notice in the upper left-hand corner, observations and forecast are highlighted. So that'll be displayed so you don't kind of get confused where you are. And then also some new things that have been included in the GFA on the live data, or the active display on the right, include the geostationary lightning mapper. That's going to be the flash extent density, and then now we can overlay fronts directly into the GFA. And then kind of wanting to point out too, in forecast view, additional forecast data is included in the upper left corner. In this example, for ceiling and visibility, you can change between flight category, ceiling, visibility, and now density altitude. So another new feature there. Many of the previous icing and turbulence pages have been incorporated into the GFA, and those pages no longer exist. And that's simply you go to the upper left-hand corner once you get to icing or turb to change your parameter. And again, you can check all those differences in the URL changes that I mentioned on that main help page a little earlier. And then one of the biggest changes on the GFA itself is the consolidation of the HIMS tool. That's going to be in the GFA and going to be known as a low altitude mode. Changing the icon in the upper right from the airplane to the helicopter switches between general aviation mode and low altitude mode. Basically, general aviation mode forecast time frame is 1 to 18 hours. Flight levels are up to 48,000 feet. The low altitude mode It's a little more high resolution. It's going to be 1 to 5 hours and then up to 5,000 feet. So if you've got short-term planning in a helicopter or a short flight, sometimes that low or a general aviation flight to where you're going to be staying below a few thousand feet, that low altitude mode will be quite handy. GFA map options are not always visible on the map as a series of icons, or I guess it's now, I'm sorry, it's now visible on the map as a series of icons in the upper right. Clicking on these icons will open additional options and tools. Kind of mentioned on the right, active displays, that's going to be your GAirMets, your SIGMETs, and all the data that was displayed a little earlier. You've got map options, flight path cross-section. Basically, that's a new feature that's going to include, you type in your flight path, it will give you a cross-section for various variables. I highly recommend you check that out. You can search for a station, or you can know your current location there by clicking the button. On the old website, that map options kind of had to pop up. On the new website, it's always going to be there in the upper right. And then one last item to point out under the products menu is our traffic flow management convective forecast, the TCF. TCF, extended TCF, and that extended convective forecast product are right there across the top. Just simply click between those products. And then also we've got our archive in the lower right, and then also verification overlaid with MRMS down there in the bottom right as well. Verification, there's going to be an additional icon on the right. You can look at all that archive verification data from one place. So now we'll take a quick look through the tools menu, and we'll go ahead and start here with this terminal weather dashboard. Basically, the top board has the same original features. A lot of the updates are going to be behind the scenes. Simply search for your site ID, click on the IDs for more information, toggle between the forecast and observation, and then of course click on the cells in the table to see additional information. That should be fairly straightforward compared to our previous site. Same can be said for the winter weather dashboard. It's got to be similar to its current form, just a lot of changes in the background and then also where to find it. And then probably one of our more popular items on our website is the aviation forecast discussions. For you that may not know, basically what this does is it just pulls the aviation forecast portion of any WFO's AFD and will plot it here on this map. So you can do that by either clicking on the map itself for the WFO area, or in the drop-down menu, you can select that forecast office. And this is what that display would look like. So you'll also notice you've got your forecast discussion displayed, but you've also got your CWA highlighted, and then the forecast office name is also going to be in that drop-down menu. And then one of the big upgrades that I mentioned earlier is a update to the website, update to the decision support graphics through the tools menu, or you can even access those via the home page in that lower right graphic that I showed. Basically with this page, you just simply select a product. For this example, we're going to use GAirMet, but I want to highlight our WPC prog charts because that is one of our most popular items on our website as well. So all you have to do now is go to this decision support graphics to be able to find those prog charts. But like I mentioned in this example, we're going to use GAirMet. Basically, all you have to do after you select GAirMet, another line of selections will appear. You select your forecast hour, your weather element, and your region. You'll notice that there are two Zulus under weather element. The Zulu F is going to be your freezing levels, and then Zulu I is going to be your icing layers. Regions are almost perfectly broken up into FA regions, except in the West. We've got that broken up between Southwest and Northwest instead of Salt Lake City and SFO, San Francisco. So once you select those elements, your image is going to pop up right there in the same web page. It's going to give you a URL across the bottom, so you'll be able to bookmark that and know where that is at all times. And then a bottom button, if you want to clear the selection from the product completely, hit that clear. But if you just want to cycle through forecast hours or elements, you just simply click the buttons above again to kind of cycle through all that data. So now on to another new feature of the website of the future is the ability to turn it into archive view. This is pretty significant and has been receiving some rave reviews already. Basically, all you have to do is you go under Tools, click on Archive View, simply select a date, a time, and hit Load Archive. And what it's going to do, it is going to turn the entire website to that time period that you selected. So that's going to include the GFA, it's going to include your DSS graphics, it's going to include PyReps, it's going to include SIGMETs, everything from that date that you selected will now be displayed on the website. And of course, as a warning, we're going to have an orange bar at the top, and then also a banner that will be displayed that you're in archive mode, just so you don't get confused between current OBS or the current site and archive mode. And then basically we selected March 18th, 2022 in the previous time frame, 1745. So then I just added, we went back to look at the observations page. We'll zoom in on some of the observations and we'll see that the observations are from 17Z on the 18th. And if you ever get lost, your computer clock will stay the same. So it will be the current time. Just throw that out there in case you do get confused. But again, the orange navigation bar and that banner should help limit some of the confusion between the current time frame and the archive mode. And then last but not least, another new addition to the future site is the status page under the tools menu. If you are ever having any doubts about the status of the GFA, PyReps, or METARs, just simply check this page out to see if there is an outage or possibly some missing data. In the lower right here, you can also check worldwide METAR status. And then if there ever is some missing data, this announcements portion will include some information on that. And with that, I'll kind of wrap up my portion of the presentation. First off, thank you all for listening and learning more about our website. If you have any additional questions after today, or anytime really, feel free to reach out to Jennifer Struzas, our morning coordination meteorologist at AWC, or Austin Cross, our techniques development forecaster. They're kind of the ones selling the website and seeking feedback at the moment. Or you can simply reach out to me. My email's there again. And I especially want to thank Louis Kanofsky for the presentation, for help with the presentation and kind of getting spun up on some of the new website and basically the entire AWC web team. This has been a huge lift for them. And it's nice to see the excitement about the new website and the fruit of their labors. It's been a lot of fun, and again, we're soliciting feedback. The survey link is there, so feedback through October 31st. So play around with the website. Let us know if you have any questions, and please, please, please feel free to submit feedback via the contact us or the official survey. We can't emphasize that enough. We'll not be able to move forward easily without tons of feedback. So that is greatly appreciated. And then also here, I've added some links for the beta website, the help pages, as mentioned earlier, the survey again, and then of course, our current AWC website. Also wanted to give one last plug here. As of January 1st, we've got a new updated National Aviation page. Check that out. It's kind of a public-facing website about anything and everything aviation weather within the National Weather Service, including the AAWU, HFO, AWC, the WFOs, everything's included in that page. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. I agree with you that the dark mode is a very nice, probably my favorite new feature of the redesign. So thank you for pointing that out and going through those slides. Trevor, I will turn it over to you to answer our queue of questions.
Sure. Since you've been presenting, Scott, we have looks like 4 or 5 questions here. So I'll start from the beginning. I'm not sure at what point of the presentation this question came in, so I may have Michael Split actually asked the question verbally, but he said, when will archive and cross sections be available for testing? But that's all the question says. So do you know how to answer that, Scott?
Yeah, you can actually do the archive mode right now. I have noticed there are some inconsistencies with the cross sections. Sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. That was kind of a big lift for the new website, but definitely check out Archive View now because it is functioning properly. But those cross sections, it's kind of hit and miss at the moment. But yeah, feel free to jump in there at any time and check those out.
Okay, so the next one comes from Josh Wofford. It says, in the old AWC website, we were able to request builds of custom weather pages that our Coast Guard's air stations could use to get the weather most relevant to our operations. Will this feature still be available with the new site? And if not, would it be possible for us to make our own custom pages with weather forecasts pertinent to our operations?
That's a good question. Probably one, if you would email me that question, I'll be able to follow up with Jennifer or Austin and get you a definite answer on that. But kind of reaching the latter part of the question, we'll definitely, with the help of the DSS page, that static image page, you'll have access to those URLs to be able to put those in your website because those aren't going to change. So any of those static images, it's a lot of images on those pages. So they're always going to have a consistent URL. Just find those via that graphics page, and then you can create your own. But yeah, if you guys are actively using that, it'd probably be good to pass that along to the web team to kind of keep that in mind. And maybe they already do, and I'm not sure. But let me find an answer to that if you just send me that question again. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Again, since Scott, your email's there, I'll point those folks that have those questions to you there at that email. We did get some comments about the cross sections and stuff. It sounds like at least 1 or 2 different people said that certain features of the beta website are not working. Tried the archive this morning, cross sections did not work.
Okay.
Somebody else said the decision support graphics for GAirMets do not display in the graphics at this time. There's a broken image symbol. But I believe you had said that as a beta, that's not being supported like over the weekend and stuff like that. So, so did you want to comment either further on any of that?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm sorry to hear that it's not working right now. Some of it was working for me last night when I kind of finished up the presentation, but I'll definitely pass that along that some of those features aren't working because they'll definitely need to investigate that because, you know, this will be our future website. So any and all issues that you notice, whether it's inconsistent or missing completely, please feel free to go to the SurveyMonkey website or go to the Contact Us on that beta website because we'll need to know all that information.
Yep, and anybody following along on Twitter, we did share the slide that has the how to contact you at the beta.aviationweather.gov site. So if you're looking at the link, it's there as well. Also, Scott also included handouts. A handout, which is essentially just the PDF of all of this. So if you need this information that you'd like to log for yourself and save it, it is available there. Moving to more of the questions. Why are the wind forecasts for Canada, Mexico, and southern portions of North America absent?
That's a good question. I don't know. Let's see. I didn't think those pages were discontinued, but let me pull up our website. You know, instead of just trying to look this up, shoot me that question as well, and I'll look that up and get you an answer. because I did notice that on the help page, when I was kind of walking through that, some of the URLs had changed, and then some things like the let's see, the wind temp static plot had been discontinued. Some of the other wind data pages had been discontinued, so maybe that was involving some of the Canadian graphics as well. So let me get an answer for you from the web team on that before I try to answer that one. I want to make sure I'm giving everyone the best information, the right information rather.
Certainly. I think a lot of the theme of these questions are on people just kind of seeing it for the first time because they have a lot of questions about it. But moving right along, for AWC, how far back will archive data be available?
Currently, I believe 10 days, but the hope is that we can push it back a lot farther than that. And I will add kind of on the previous question and this question as well, the web team, I let them know I was doing this presentation, so they're all knowledge. They have the knowledge that I'm doing this, so they are more than willing to help answer any questions that come out of the presentation today. So know that if you send me an email, we've got a team of people that are ready to respond. So we'll get back to you as quick as we can.
All right, moving along. For ferrying aircraft and test flying programs, having an outlook mode for 2 to 5 days out, for example, graphical products, LIFR, thunderstorms, would be a great feature. Windy.com with the ECMWF model shows ceilings, cloud cover, rain, visibility, etc. When will AWC have something comparable?
That is a great question. Thank you for that question. We, as you may or may not know, our SigWeather desk are being retired, possibly at the end of next year, definitely by November of 2024. Those are those global graphics desks that work on the graphics across the globe. And with that retirement of those desks, we kind of have an option to start doing things like that, like 2 to 5 day outlooks for turbulence, for icing. That's definitely being discussed right now as we kind of transition toward the future, kind of preparing for those retirements, those desk retirements. So my hope is that we'll have a product that will be beyond day one. Obviously, that's pretty important for planning purposes. And at the moment, all we really have on our website that goes beyond 18 hours, like the GFA, are those WPC prog charts. So I know a lot of general aviation pilots, they're getting their outlooks from those prog charts by going beyond 18 hours, or they're looking at SPC for thunderstorm outlooks. So far, our NAMs, they'll do an internal, those National Aviation Meteorologists embedded with the air traffic control in Warrenton. They actually issue products for traffic flow managers beyond day one. So we've got kind of a, I guess, what do you want to say, a template to be able to work on those. But definitely it's part of the talks ongoing now to be ingrained into AWC culture in the future. So hopefully we'll get there soon. But yeah, we're definitely thinking about those products.
Thanks, Scott. We still have several questions that are coming in, and we're coming at an hour and a half. So David, do you want me to keep asking them? Several people have dropped off the call at this point. So we can either end it here and forward questions to the email and feedback page, or we can continue answering questions. It's up to you.
With this being at 90 minutes now, kind of cutting into the lunch hour, depending on what time zone we're in. Well, I think we should end it here. Those questions I asked that we just email Scott and his team, since it sounds like there are several more, which I'm glad to hear. I want to thank all the attendees for all the questions they asked. I think they're all great questions. Trevor, do you have anything else to add? Because I think that's about it for me, other than just thanking everyone for putting this on and participating and being able to make this happen. I think we had great participation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we had about 60 people live, which is one of our most attended webinars, which is a testament to the Aviation Weather Group doing such a great presentation and seeing some of these new tools. And all of these questions here show that people are, super want to talk to you some more, Scott and Josh. And so I hope that we can funnel all these questions to you and get those answered. But somebody is asking, will the recorded version of this be available? And yes, it will. So I'll kind of end there and get into sort of how this works when we do our webinars for everybody is that when you propose a webinar, you can just reach out to the webinar team. You can do that several different ways. One is just reaching out to the NWA team and NWA help as well, and you can reach out to them and propose one, and we can entertain the idea of doing one, much like David reached out to us to ask if this was something that we could do. That's not just a member group option. That's really any member can propose a webinar and be able to do it. But yes, you will be able to see all of our webinars on YouTube. We have a playlist called NWA Webinar. And you can follow along with all of our webinars, even going back the last several years that we've done them. It used to be called Webinar Wednesday, and now it's hashtag NWA Webinar. You can follow along on that hashtag too to see the announcements for others, as well as the NWAS social media pages as well. So I also want to make a plug that we are a little over a month away from the NWA meeting that is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this year. I believe that's August 20th, 24th. I think that's off the top of my head. And so I'm looking forward to seeing several of you there. But if you wanted to learn more about what's coming from a standpoint of NWA, you'll have a chance to meet a lot of the board members there. You'll get an opportunity to meet several people about the future of the NWA and get your voice heard also about anything that you'd like to see the NWA start to move towards, anything along those lines, because we'll be all ears to hear them. So we hope to see you there in Pittsburgh in person, but it will be a hybrid meeting, and so there'll be a little bit of living in the app and a little bit of living in person, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing a lot of you there and a lot of you virtually. So we'll go ahead and end there. Once again, thank you to David, Scott, and Josh for being here and providing our presentation today. And we will see you at the next NWA webinar, which will probably be coming in August. So look out for that as we make announcements for the next one. Hopefully you guys all have a really good day. And thank you again, Scott, David, and Josh, and everybody else that was able to stay around for the hour and a half. You all have a good one.
Yeah, thank you all.